The new expansion for HOI4 is almost here. Here's a question now. What nations will be getting brand new rework focus trees, and which nations will be blessed with a focus tree that's not the generic one? Which one will it be? Well, we have this. The tier list. Will it be almost certain? Probably because we already know about it because they've already announced it. Or will it be less likely? I realize these colors are out of order. Red meaning urgent, and green meaning not so urgent. That doesn't make any sense. Let me change that. Boom! There we go. That's the right order. HOI4. Here it is. So, what do we know so far? From the dev diaries, or dev corners they're calling it at the moment, we know for certain that it is going to focus on the Pacific. What is the Pacific Ocean? It's all of this. All of this. It's safe to assume any nation that borders the Pacific Ocean has a chance to be in this DLC. I'm going to start from the bottom here. The absolute bottom. I hear you Aussies and I hear you New Zealanders. Everyone says this focus tree is basic. And it's pretty basic. You can see by the size of it, this was designed quite a long time ago. I don't particularly hate it. I don't particularly love it. One thing I do dislike about it is very railroaded. Getting rid of depression, see, Great Depression here, is only doable by naturally going through your focus tree. So there isn't really a dedicated break the Great Depression path. It's just doing the focuses as you would normally is how you get rid of Great Depression, which is just kind of not very fun. And a lot of these are railroaded behind world tension or some kind of requirement of being, I don't know, semi-autonomous towards the UK based on your puppet status. So, small focus tree and railroaded. Okay, let's get it out of the way. And New Zealand, less railroaded because you're not getting rid of Great Depression, but some really bad negative modifiers that you can never get rid of unless they've changed this. I don't think they have. But one of the issues you do run into with New Zealand is you'd run out of building slots pretty quickly. So you've only got 2 main core states, and then you have Tahiti, Samoa. Okay, I don't know my Pacific Islands, obviously. I've got some time to do my homework for this before the DLC comes out. But it has high compliance, and you can build here. And it doesn't have a lot of building slots because it's not a core, so it's not usually great. Anyway, rant over. That's right, Australia. It is a Pacific nation. And it is reworking an existing rework, Together for Victory, which was one of the first expansions. Why is that relevant? Well, if you notice, there's a path here for the DLCs that have recently become free are the ones that they seem to begin reworking a second time to become big focus trees. Version 2 focus trees. We have the generic here, version 1 with the first DLC, and then version 2. Will it get a version 2? Our survey says incredibly unlikely. It would be a massive surprise if they did, but how does it connect to the existing themes of the expansion, which tend to be the major powers of the Pacific? Japan, China. So, no, unfortunately, Aussies, I don't think you're going to get your rework. And New Zealand? Sadly, no, I don't think you're going to get your rework. What is this? Why have your flags so similar? Whoa, red stars, that's got connotations to it. No, unfortunately, New Zealand, I don't think you're going to get your rework. Personally, hand on heart, might piss some people off with this one. I don't think they're ever returning to New Zealand and Australia. Shots fired. I'm sorry, guys. Let's enter the realms of possibility. What about Southeast Asia, which is the Philippines, Indochina, Siam, possibly Burma, Indonesia, and Malaysia. So, Malaysia didn't get a Together for Victory expansion focus tree. Still has the generic one. Same for the Dutch East Indies. However, the Dutch East Indies does kind of have a focus tree because the Dutch one kind of backpedals onto it as you kind of like abandon the Netherlands as you get occupied, and then you kind of become the Netherlands. So kind of in a weird kind of way, it does kind of have a focus tree, but it's all the way over here. Do we class that as a focus tree? Then we have the Kingdom of Siam. Once again, generic. We also have Indochina. Now, one pattern with Paradox recently is they release nations and then give them focus trees. There is a suspicion that Korea may possibly get a focus tree because it is shown as independent from Japan as like a puppet status. Do you know what? I'm not a big fan of this feature. Just making every nation independent, balkanizing the world, and then making them puppets, and then sometimes giving them focus trees and sometimes not. I feel like it kind of works differently. Like, for instance, France, I like the fact in the past that all of its empire was a colony. Nothing had any level of autonomy. That may not be historically accurate, but then Britain, on the other hand, has got these fully autonomous puppets, like the Dominions. So I kind of like how France and the UK, game mechanical-wise, work differently. However, if Paradox do continue down the same path, we're probably going to see an independent Indochina, some kind of French puppet. Then we could lead possibly onto some kind of Vietnam. Anyway, the Dutch East Indies, which conveniently has the flag of the Netherlands. I personally think this one is incredibly unlikely. Not impossible, but when it comes down to the fact that it already has a focus tree as a part of the Netherlands, I rank this one super low. But there's this kind of tiny sprinkling of possibility. Oh, so small, though. British Malaya. No lie, I actually kind of like the flag. It's just a bit different. What even is that? What is that? I don't know, but I like it. Now, this one, I personally think is also unlikely, but there's a small chance that this one, because it's not been looked at all since Together for Victory, there is a small chance that this possibly could get some love. But guys, don't get your hopes up. It's practically in between unlikely and possible, but it's just slightly more possible than the Dutch East Indies. Please don't get your hopes up. For the sake of it, they released Burma as an independent nation because that's kind of what it was. It had some level of autonomy away from the Raj. So that's the reason why it became independent in the last DLC. But let's move on from the next DLC, said Paradox. Okay, Burma, you have been released. Will you be getting a national focus tree? So unbelievably unlikely. There's a pattern here. There's so many British flags. I like that. Let's put the British flags everywhere. Now, guys, this ain't happening. From a historical perspective, there was action between the Japanese and the British in the Burmese jungles. But from a grand perspective of the expansion, being that it's about the Pacific, and it doesn't really involve the major conflicts in that region, such as China and Japan, I just don't think this is going to happen. I've got that one Burmese fan, and he's like, no, Dave, it is time for the Burmese national focus. No. Siam, or is later to be known as Thailand. It gets renamed historically in 1937. It's surprising that the Paradox devs have not just inserted this in as just a random event of the country getting renamed. My understanding is it's quite difficult to rename countries in HOI4. Like, you can't actually do it as a soft mod and rename it live in-game. It has to be like a new formable nation. It has to become something else, or be a physical formable, like a button press. Because I know there's no mod, as I'm aware of, that can rename you on the fly. No, I could be wrong about that, because last time I looked into that was probably a few years ago. Anyway, Siam or Thailand. I'm going to put this one under possible. The odds are so unbelievably low. Once again, this tied on to Japan because it was a part of their faction during World War II. When it comes down from a historical perspective, though, I don't even know how they were directly involved with the Axis and the Japanese powers, but I know they were on the side of the Axis. So there's a part of me that's very curious and be like, ooh, give me the history of this nation. What was this nation all about? But deep down in my heart, I don't think this is going to get much love. This is probably going to be a part of some Southeast Asia DLC, hence the reason why these are ranked so unbelievably low. And then finally, we have Indochina. What should be the Indochina flag? I think we'll go with the Vietnam flag. This one's not going to scale very well. Oh dear, the pixels. You know, I'd really like to see this because the idea of a Cold War, a rebellious Vietnam just sounds so cool from just a Vietnam War perspective. But are we ever going to see a Cold War content in HOI4? We kind of did see it with the Gotterdammerung and some of the more future techs like nuclear submarines and whatnot, and jet aircraft. But it's just not going to happen for this DLC. Maybe one day, but maybe Paradox just are like, nope, do you know what? We're done with the colonies now. Let's talk about the main nations. Hey, but Dave, hang on a second. Southeast Asia? You've missed a country. That's right, the Philippines. Now, I know something for certain, and it's that the Philippines has a very strong nationalistic base. Very high population, too. And there's probably something on Paradox's radar that's like, ooh, we could sell DLC to this nation, and it would probably sell very well in the Philippines. And once again, many naval battles happened around the Philippines in World War II. And of course, the Japanese invaded the Philippines, which I never do because there's nothing really to take from the Philippines. Maybe they should put some resources here, maybe? But a national focus tree would usually add steel and rubber and other precious resources. So maybe that is the path the DLC would go. However, on perspective, I just don't think this is a big dealio. I don't think this is going to happen. And that makes me sad too, because I do think this is a nation that probably would sell well for Paradox. The marketing department's like, no, please, Philippines, that's going to sell. I don't think it's more likely as some of the others. However, don't get your hopes up. I just don't think it's going to happen for this DLC. If I was to give my future prediction with this, is there's probably going to be some kind of national focus pack for this region. And the most likely nations to get it would be Siam, Philippines, and then maybe Malaysia and Indonesia. Those four nations, because they're the ones that mainly did the most conflict during World War II in that path. Anyway, let's go further north. Now this is where we know some things are certain. Certain? You already know, Dave? Do you know about the DLC, what it's called, what it's about, when it's coming out? No, I've just read the dev diaries. And we know for certain, 100% Japan is getting a rework. You know what? I'm saying rework like I'm stuck record. But no, I'm saying it twice because it's been reworked once in the past already, Japan. This would be the second rework for Japan. Japan Part 2 rework. The previous Dev Corner Paradox did give their predictions for the future. And one of the predictions they did make is the next DLC will be around Japan and China. China, in my heart of hearts, these are practically certain. Paradox have announced them. Unless they were to do some absolutely wild U-turn, these are going to be in the next DLC. Remember though, this region isn't just about Japan and China. We have many other nations within this region. Let's go down them. The other China has been confirmed. They've shown the focus tree. We're going to get 2 Chinas. 2 for 1 special. Plus, we have all the warlords. Guangxi, Click, Yunnan, Zaibai, Sanma. We know from a historical perspective and the mod that focuses on this region, there are significantly more warlords, making this region so much more chaotic. And it kind of makes more sense from a Chinese perspective why China was so difficult to unify. Because you could imagine that the warlords unified against the main China could actually put up a massive force. Remember, you don't fight big long wars in Asia for obvious reasons. Next up, the many warlords. Guangxi clique is a big one. Paradox have announced they will be re-looking at the warlord focus trees, but they have also said as a reply that they are not going to be remaking the warlord focus tree. It will be tweaked and adjusted, but it will not be remade from the ground up. So we can say for certain that it's, well, not certain. I will say one thing. I don't like the way that this says possible. I want this to say very unlikely and unlikely. Yeah, we should probably change those. Anyway, regardless, the warlords, which are represented by the Guangxi clique flag here, are not going to be reworked. Tweaked, but not reworked. Let's go further north, even further north. We have Manchu and Menchuko. So Manchu does have a focus tree, and it is a decent one too. It's connected in to the Chinese focus trees, and it has the ability to make the Emperor of China, which is a really cool, hidden, sneaky little path to go down. Offer vassalization. I kind of like that. I feel like I'm playing EU4. And I also like there's 2 paths. There's a path where you can basically become hooked to Japan, and a path where you become independent. I like it, and they're quite detailed focus trees too. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think this is going to be reworked. Manchu, small chance, but the Menchu more so because it doesn't have a focus tree. And I feel like it could work in synergy with Mongolia as well. So this is like up in the air, this one. And being that they've already kind of announced Japan, I think there's a possible chance this actually could be a thing. Followed by Manchu being less likely due to the fact it's already got a focus tree. But if they're going to do one, why not do the other, right? Ooh, guys, this is a tough one. I do feel more lean towards a Mongolia-style path with the Menchu. The Manchu, less so because it's already got an expansion, if that kind of makes sense. In that circumstance, surely we should look at Mongolia, right? Like if it's a Mongol-based puppet nation, should we could look at an independent Mongolia as well as a slight possibility? I don't feel very strongly about it, though. Something just tells me, because Mongolia didn't really feature anywhere in the World War II conflict, I just don't feel like this is a possibility. So I feel like I've ranked it and I want to de-rank it again. Remember, on average, we get about 4 to 5 national focuses as a part of a DLC. And if a major power is getting one, there's a chance that there might even be 3 DLC national focuses as a part of the DLC. So I'm trying to be somewhat realistic here. And we've already had the big 3 ones announced here between the China and Japan conflicts. But I feel like there's just a piece of the puzzle that's missing here. And that's why I'm looking at other realms of possibility. The other piece of the puzzle is Korea. Now, this is still a bit of a maybe because we've seen that it's independent, but Paradox at the moment are going down a path where they keep releasing as many autonomous puppets as possible. I think this might be a direction of the lead developer. He might like these independent puppets over colonial nations. But there's been a few that they added in the last DLC that just didn't get focus trees. Burma, Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan. These nations all became independent, but they're kind of just redundant because they're just nations that have been released, but they can't do anything because they've not got national focuses. The only thing you could say about the Near East is that Iraq can eat them up and make them puppets, for instance. Apart from that, they're kind of redundant. So there's a chance that they'll add an independent Korea, which it looks like they have with the last screenshot from the last dev diary, but they might not even give it a focus tree, which makes me want to put it under possible, but just less likely than highly likely. In between highly likely and possible. Ah, interesting. So is this it? Are we done? There is one other element you've missed to this. The Pacific Ocean is bloody massive. Look at the size of it. And of course, we've covered the entirety of the West here. So do we go down the path of impossibility? Do we look at the Soviet Union because they border the Pacific Ocean? Do we look at the realms of releasable nations, such as the Micronesian Islands, possibly as an independent releasable nation? Or Tahiti. It's not called Micronesia. I think I'm going to get it mixed up with Victoria. What's the big one you've not thought about, guys? What's the big one everyone's forgotten about? The nation that played the massive part in World War II in the Pacific that fought against Japan. Oh. This entered my head a few days back, and I thought, wouldn't this be the most awesome announcement possible that they've been keeping secret? The United States of America getting a rework in the new DLC. Wouldn't that be incredible? Now, it's up there with Gotterdammerung, isn't it? Rework in Germany. What if the next DLC is an absolutely unpredictable take and a massive change to how the United States works? Now, they've already announced there's a jungle-themed special forces they're announcing. They've also announced that they're reworking how port strikes are going to work, as hinting as a few of the naval changes. So, is this hinting the United States is going to get a complete rework from this point on? This would be the big shocker. But the problem is now, there's a little piece of my heart that says, I feel like I would have already known about this, you know? I feel like they would have, like, dropped breadcrumbs somewhere in the previous DLCs because it's such a big, fundamental change. I'll be honest with you guys. Japan, China, Commie China, and the United States, they're the four nations that would be the full DLC reworks. That would be the biggest DLC. I mean, it would be on par with Gotterdammerung, I guess. But, man, that would be such a biggie. And I've heard a few people in my comments as well screaming, USA rework when? And I'm thinking, ooh, you know what? I never even thought about that. What do you think, guys? Have I lost my mind? Or we're about to see the return of Make America Great Again. Big USA right there. I think there is another nation here that we've missed that's going to get DLC, get an actual national focus love. However, because America is so unbelievably large when it comes down to its impact and the effect it could have on the war, there's still a part of me that just says this is not going to happen. They are introducing coal as a fuel for factories to reduce the snowballing effect of nations in HOI4. And America feels like that nation you would pull coal from, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? When you want to kind of inject coal into your economy. So it feels like there's the nation that would be the sponge of all these resources, which it currently already is at the moment, but coal would take it to the next level. So that kind of feels like it synergizes with the DLC. But then again, there's that point in my heart that says, I don't think so. There it is. It's my list. This is a prediction. I don't work for Paradox. I do not have inside information from Paradox. These are simply my predictions based on fact from dev diaries, dev corners, as well as my inklings based on leaks, little screenshot bits and pieces, and just basically the region of the world and the DLC policies. Do you think I've got it right? Or do you think I've got it completely wrong? Can't wait for you guys to all comment below some other nation that's not even in the Pacific and be like, that would be a good remake. No, not today. As always, guys, if you want these videos and you're missing out on them, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment below. And then YouTube will present more of these videos to you in your For You pages. If YouTube is not giving you these kind of videos and you're like, how come I didn't get your video, Dave? It's because you didn't interact with it. So now's your chance. Subscribe.